Hey guys, it's G from G Knows Football. I know I haven't seen you guys in a while, but just want to let you guys know that I've been working really hard on a podcast with a great friend of mine, Ak, over at New Stripe City, and we've been meeting up every Sunday talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. So for all my diehard Bengals fans, make sure you check us out over at New Stripe City. Subscribe, and you can also enter to win a contest to win a super cool signed autograph picture by the man himself, Mr. Chad Ochocinco. So back to my site, G Knows Football. Been working on a few things, and I'm really excited to let you guys know I've been working on a fantasy football how-to guide. So for all my ladies who've always wanted to try out fantasy football, but don't know where to get started or how to draft a fantasy team or even how to join a fantasy league, this guide is just for you guys. And fellas, don't feel like you're left out either. If you've never tried fantasy football or you just want some cool tips and techniques on how to better your fantasy football play, this guide is for you as well. So make sure you look out for it. I'll make sure to have announcements and countdowns to keep you guys posted on the exact release date. So with that being said, I've been working on a new segment, G's Top 7, where I want to give you guys my weekly top 7, whether it be the top 7 quarterbacks of all time, my top 7 rookies for the upcoming season, or even for right now, my top 7 fantasy defensive teams. So in honor of my fantasy how-to guide, my first G's Top 7 is dedicated to the top 7 defenses for fantasy players this season. So, coming in at number 1, I have the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos have had a great defensive unit for the past few seasons, and I don't see that changing in this season, seeing as they have the same veterans returning in Von Miller and Talib Khalib. Their secondary is pretty solid, and their defensive line is as well. So, look for the Denver Broncos as a top pick for your fantasy teams in the defense this year. Coming in at number 2, I have the Houston Texans. I know last year they didn't have a great season, but they were missing the great J.J. Watt. It's crazy how one player can have such an impact on a defensive team, but J.J. Watt is that piece for the Houston Texans. I think their defense will have a great season this year. Coming in at number 3, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. I know people don't usually think of them as having a great defense, but low-key, the Chiefs have a pretty great defense. They have a team full of young, hungry, aggressive players, and they also have a secondary that's led by the great Eric Berry over at safety. Side note, if you ever want to read a great off-the-field NFL story, you should definitely look up Eric Berry's story. It's very motivating, and he's a pretty dope player. So coming in at number 4, I have the Seahawks. We all know the Legion of Boom is a great defensive unit. Even though in recent years they haven't been as great as we have seen them in the past, they've still been ranked in the top 10 defense for a very long time. So I see them as a very consistent defense and a great pickup for your fantasy lineups. Coming in at number 5, I have the Minnesota Vikings. As Zimmer with the head coach, we already know the defense is going to be great. Last year, they gave us a preview with that awesome 8-0 start for the season. I don't see anything changing with the defense. If anything, I see it getting better. Zimmer is such a great defensive coach. We've seen him do great things in Cincinnati for the Bengals. Our defense definitely misses him. But moving on, number 6, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Looking up a few little statistics about the Cardinals when it comes to fantasy football, they come in 3rd as a defensive unit for the past 3 years. So if anything, that says the defense is pretty consistent to me. And as far as off the season losses, they've had a few losses, but I think they're pretty solid as a unit this year. Definitely another team to look at to draft for your fantasy teams. And coming in at number 7, I have kind of a sleeper team, the Carolina Panthers. They didn't have a great defensive season last year, but with the addition of Julius Peppers, who was a longtime player for the Panthers, who was in Green Bay for a few years, having him back in the locker room as a veteran, a leader for the defense, and an awesome player, I think that will do great things for their defense. And not to mention they have Luke Kuechly coming back and Shaq Thompson. I just think they're going to be a sleeper defensive team. So if it comes down to your drafting your fantasy leagues and you just have a defense, you have your defense left and there's not too many defenses left on the board, you should definitely look for the Carolina Panthers as a sleeper defensive team. So that's all for G's Top 7 today, and those are my top 7 fantasy defensive teams to draft when in your fantasy leagues this season. I'll see you guys next week with another Top 7. Bye.